guys, it's Sam, and this is my August wrap-up. Listen, I'm filming this earlier this week, and I'm deep in the throes of BookNet Fest planning, preparation, packing madness. I couldn't even be bothered to put contacts in today. My lipstick has gotten messed up like 4 different times, and I never have problem applying lipstick, and for some reason I couldn't get it to apply today, and I'm just really done. I also, a couple hours ago, decided I might want to cut my hair, like, right before BookNet Fest, so it goes back to this, which I feel like is my true form. But it's the day before an event. I've been literally bitching and complaining and whinging, as the Brits would call it, about this for the last couple of hours because I don't like pressure, and I decided to put more pressure on myself right before. Can you feel the stretch through the camera? I hope you can. I just want to share it a little bit, because frazzled. So I do think I'm going to finish at least one more book before the end of the month, but I'm going to be in Orlando at the actual end of the month. So we have a slightly early wrap-up. I only got through 4 books, which is fine, obviously. Part of this was Tome Topple, so I read 2 very large, over 500-page books, and then I also started the reading quest, which I've talked about in other videos, so I will talk about that a little bit, but I am not done with that because that doesn't end until halfway through September. Sorry for this long intro. Let's get into the books I read. So the first book I picked up for Tome Topple, and that was The Invasion of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. I've already done a spoiler-free review for this book, so I will link that on the screen for you to check out. This is the second book in the Queen of the Tearling trilogy, and it's a adult fantasy series that I'm really enjoying. This feels just so different. It does tend to be a very polarizing series. People either love it or hate it. Everyone seems to have a vastly different opinion on each book, and there's people that love the finale, people that hate the finale, people that hate the second book, people that love the second book. Like, there's everything. There's a lot of opinions about it, but I really enjoyed this, and I'm very much looking forward to the last book in the series. I've been warned that I might not like it, but I've been warned I might also love it. So who knows what's going to happen, but this is just a fun story. It has a lot of different twists in it as far as the world. It almost feels like in this one we get into it almost, is this sci-fi? Is this fantasy? Like, there's almost elements of both, and it's all done in a really interesting and cool way because I feel like that blend is attempted a lot but not always done well. And I also really like the characters in here. So Kelsey, our main character, is amazing, complex, grows so much, and is really battling her inner darkness, particularly in this book, which I'm always on board for. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I then picked up Dreams of Gods and Monsters by Laini Taylor. This is the other book that I read during Tome Topple, so I ended up reading 2 books, which is fantastic and was my goal. So this is the 3rd and final book in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, which is very well loved and most of you know about it. This one was slightly disappointing, surprising no one because I rarely ever completely love particularly YA fantasy finales. It's my problem. I mention it every time I read one because I always tend to not enjoy them as much as I hope to. I feel like they have trouble living up to the first part of the series, particularly the second book, whatever. With this series, I still love it. It's still amazing, but I felt like it could have been 4 books. I do feel like this book was rushed even though it was pretty big. I feel like halfway through they kind of started this thing that we could have had more information about. I didn't need a beautifully wrapped up ending by any means. I actually like that the ending of this is sort of vague-ish, so if you're not into that, you might not like this ending. I don't mind vague endings, I just wanted a little more information and it not to feel so rushed. And there were different parts of this that I felt like were wrapped up too nicely. I prefer my endings to be a little bit messy. I think that's kind of what we've deduced from this. Like I've talked about before, I don't like when they're wrapped up really nicely. I want a little more mess. I want information. I want an informational mess. That's what I want. I want to be sad, usually. I want there to be consequences for things, and I'm finding over and over again that particularly in YA there's just not the consequences. And I love my YA fantasy. You guys know that I love my YA fantasy, but I'm much more satisfied with adult fantasy endings these days in YA because I just don't feel like the YA titles go there. But like even Clockwork Princess, which a lot of people say is like the best ending of any finale ever, it was still like, it doesn't go there enough. I need more. I don't know. Maybe I need to do another discussion on this because I'm still just so mad. I've done discussion videos on my finales, but I'm still just always just left disappointed. This is still a very solid conclusion. I like what this series has to say about war in particular. This is about a war between chimera, which are basically like devils, blah blah blah, monsters, and angels. and kind of like who's the angel and who's the devil, and what does war make people into, and like how all the destruction is really on like the people, you know, there's a few people in power making all these decisions that affect all these other people, and how just horrible war is for both sides of the equation and all this stuff. I like what it has to say about the grand themes. I really love Laini Taylor's writing. I will continue to read everything by her because her writing is breathtaking. There's also a lot of different things about like various worlds in here, which is always cool, and I like the mythos. I just felt like the plot stuff wasn't as strong as it could have been. I still gave this 3.75 out of 5 stars though. I then listened to The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I listened to this on audiobook, and I have been hearing about this for a while. I read Nicola's first book, Everything Everything, when it first came out, or actually as an ARC from BEA, and her books are just really easy to get through. Even on audiobook, like I could speed this up and it was really easy to get through. I do feel like The Sun Is Also a Star is a stronger book than Everything Everything, but I do feel that Nicola falls into this like, there's like things that she does in every book that are kind of like gimmicks. I was looking for the word for it, but I kind of feel like she does this like gimmick thing with her books that make them more interesting but also feel gimmicky. I don't know what it is. I still can't quite place it because obviously I didn't read the physical form of The Sun Is Also a Star, but I still feel like she does this like gimmick thing which kind of like gets you, but then after you're done you're kind of left like, was that really as like great as I was thinking it was when I was in the middle of it? I don't know. She does that kind of with Everything Everything and like some of the drawings and just like the format of it. And then with this, there's a bunch of different side plots that she kind of does this with. I don't know what it is. She also really, really heavily relies on Insta-love. Holy crap. Like between Everything Everything and this one, Insta-love. And like I don't hate it necessarily, but it's also like this one is blatantly Insta-love. Like the characters meet and are thinking within 12 hours that they're in love. They're like having like, is this deja vu? We feel like we've known each other forever. Like all this stuff that I just can't get on board with anymore. I don't like those kind of relationships. Maybe I'm getting too old. I don't know. But I just feel like they're really unrealistic. They're setting people up for unrealistic expectations of things. And it's very overly done and romanticized. But, well, I've said all that. I enjoyed this book. There's these different plot points that you get to see from different characters that are kind of crossing paths with the main characters a lot. So these like minor side characters and how they affect the main characters' lives. And there's chapters in each of their perspectives too. Usually only one, sometimes a couple, but overall are just kind of like side characters weaving in. And that made the whole world and everything feel more real. It is a contemporary, so obviously that's not like a world building thing, but it is in this way where it feels like these characters are real and are living in very real lives, because especially like even if some of the things with the main characters felt borderline fantastical with this insta-love situation going on, I felt like it was grounded by these side character stories. And I feel like everyone has said that. The little bit that I have heard about this book, I know people really liked it, and whenever I heard about it, it was people talking about these side character chapters. And I also really liked the audiobook narration for this. They had two different narrators. There were people with accents. This is a relationship between a Korean American male and a Jamaican immigrant female, and they have the accents, they have different, you know, a male and a female narrator. All of that I really like as far as an audiobook production. So I definitely enjoyed a lot of this. I enjoyed the cultural things that are coming to play in here. That was done really well. I just don't like the insta-love stuff that she does. The insta-love gimmick that she does. I don't like it. But overall, I think this was definitely a solid contemporary. If you like contemporary, you're probably going to love this. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. And lastly, I read Clariel by Garth Nix. This is the prequel book to the Abhorsen trilogy, which I think now the series as a whole is much bigger. But it was originally a trilogy. I read it in high school and loved and adored it. But this is a book that takes place a couple hundred years before the first book in that series. So I decided I wanted to reread that series because I love it so much, but it's been a long time since I've read it in its entirety, and then I wanted to read the new book. So I decided to read this book. And I loved being back in this world. This is just, this fantasy world just speaks to me on a deep level. It deals with a lot of like death magic going into the kind of like river Styx. The Abhorsens are a kind of magician almost that have to bind the dead and different free magical beings that will come out of like death kind of. It sounds creepy. It can be. This one is like less creepy, has less to do with that. But the magic system in here, the world, the characters, I love them. This is definitely good if you've already read the first series, obviously, because you'll get different hints and stuff. It had been a while since I read that series, but again, I'm familiar enough with it that I knew things that were being mentioned, new characters that I was seeing, stuff like that. But I don't feel like this book quite stands on its own. I know it's not necessarily supposed to because it is a prequel, but at the same time it's a prequel. So it's taking place before that. So I feel like it should stand on its own a little bit. And the first half I really liked, but I still felt like it was just kind of slow. But I was fine because I was back in this world. I love this world. And then it was feeling like it was just shoehorning itself into like, here's how this character and these characters got into where they are in the later books. And it's like, okay, like I didn't need a whole book to know that necessarily. So I didn't feel like it was its own story. And it just felt like it was just leading up to the conclusion that was already set for it by the other books, if that makes any sense at all. So I didn't end up loving this as much as I thought I would because it just didn't feel like the characters were in charge, were doing their thing, and were more just going down a very narrow path that had already been set. So I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the series again because I love it so, so much. But this one isn't necessary, but it's fun and it's a good one to start and then go through the whole series and everything. So 3 out of 5 stars. I obviously had a blue cover theme going on this month. So that is it for the books that I read in August. Comment down below, let me know if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all you guys soon. Bye!